Bro,
That's what's up.
What's the biggest challenge in your life right now?
Letting go. Letting
go.
go.
Yeah, talk about that.
Big
man.
time. Letting go. That's it. It's right now. You're saying right now.
Yeah.
Just letting go.
I think we had that conversation, bro. Where we talked. I think I mentioned to you, we talked about it together and said that train yourself to let go of everything you're afraid to lose, yo.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And it's mind blowing. You know what I'm saying? Like what you think about like that stuff, because it hinders you. It hinders your growth.
Yeah.
You fear that
right.
you have. You know what I'm saying? It's like if I let go, this could happen. It's a fear of missing out. It's a fear of like being hurt. It's a fear of making it. There's a fear of success. A fear of failure. Just
And it's not just that though. It's so much more. And it's so much more.
Break that down.
It's so much of letting go and understanding that it's a chance you might not be accepted. It's a chance you might not be looked at the same.
Yeah.
It's a chance that you might have to leave some people behind in effort for you to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I ain't talking about regular people. I'm talking about people you love, nigga. So just like when you know, and if y'all still with us and y'all in tune, guess what I said? Slide over. We got more room. Keep riding with us. When you dealing with a person that you love, it's just like letting go that ex that you've been with for 5 years. You ain't gonna forget about that person the first week you break up with them. Let's think of the reality of that. Am I saying something?
And you know, it's okay for you to not agree with someone. We can speak on a subject and not agree on the subject, and life will be okay. I'm not less of a person because I don't agree with you. You're not less of a person because you don't agree with me. And why is it so important to be right? That is the question that we all have to ask. Why is it so fucking important to be right?
Roll me, Mac.
What happens when you get overstimulated, and how do you manage it? When I get overstimulated or too much exposure to like dopamine, whether that be like, you know, excessive use of the phone, having a lot playing at one point in time, like music, TV, trying to do something at work, it causes a bit of anxiety, and almost like triggers that people pleasing sense to want to try to do everything at once. At least what I feel when I'm in that moment. But as far as how to manage it, really just be still. Be still. Just do your best to become thoughtless. I mean, that's just what like the likes of J.E.T.Sense, the likes of Brene Brown, the likes of a couple of Buddhist monks. Like the biggest thing that I've gathered from them and just listening to them is just to remain calm as possible. Still, like calm the mind, allow the mind to just be still, and the body knows how to return itself to like its neutral position so that it can function again. But being overly stimulated is just trying to do too much at once. Like you just feel like yourself getting almost like a panic attack. And I know I've had that many a times, man, where trying to do everything at once and not sure of where I'm not sure where I'm headed, but I just keep going, and to the point where tired myself out mentally. And I know it comes from old ideology of not being enough, right? Everything just tends to boil down back to that, trying to do so much, not feeling enough, trying to feel like you need to be something. That's that whole thing of not being enough. But it's okay with just not having to be anything. To be honest, you are, I guess, mentioned before, you're dope just by simply being alive and being in your body, in your presence, in your spirit. But a lot of times we can allow the ego to really eat at us. And the ego is a never filling pot. And it just constantly, it's completely empty until you just want to keep achieving. Of course, there's room for improvement every day. But as far as the needs to just be in the, like the limelight or whatever, looking for fame and all that stuff is definitely rooted in the ego. And sometimes it can get to the best of us depending on where we came from, as far as what we grew up in. If we didn't feel seen or heard or loved, there are times where we'll do things to try to be seen, heard, and loved. You know what I mean, man or woman. We all have our ways of doing such. The cat that knows he got a really good bowling game just wants to really outshine everybody. The cat that that can sing wants to try to turns a karaoke opportunity into a tryout for American Idol. There's just many things, many perspectives you can have on what really allows that ego to do what it does. But getting back to the root of this subject, overly stimulated, trying to do so much in such a little time, almost moving like Pac did before he passed, where he was just constantly moving, writing this song, gotta do this, gotta make this song right here, and not really taking time to just take in the present moment. And I believe we're all guilty of it. That's the great thing about being human, is that you can see yourself in others. There's no reason to blame or judge or anything like that, because you can see how all of us are fucking connected. And we truly are. And I think that's one way. Another way to kind of push through the whole thing of being overly stimulated is that everybody has things that they want to do. Places they want to go, people they want to meet, goals they want to achieve. But remembering to sit in the present moment, I believe, is just a key factor how to make it in this life. And still learning, still learning, despite all of which one has learned, constantly still learning. Just that's something that I strive to do, is to continue to learn as much as I can, and learning about being overly stimulated. And managing it is just prioritizing time. For a long time, when I was trying to just learn as much as I could, right? I was trying to look at each subject every day. And my brain is just like, it's overly stimulated. It's kind of like, Apple Music now. Like, we have so much access to music. There's no way you can really just absorb all of it. But if you schedule, you prioritize, you can have something to where you can listen to each subject daily. And that's what I learned to do. I created like this almost like a YouTube learning schedule for every day of the week that keeps me from trying to just overload myself with knowledge. I mean, granted, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And so everything's best in moderation. So this is kind of like my way of creating a system of moderation when it comes to learning. And I'll try to set aside time to do that too. Usually the start of the day, especially like if I work day shift, if I'm on like the morning inspection, it can play while I'm looking for whatever's going on the on the airfield. And then by the time I'm done, the studying is done. The day is just beginning, and I've already completed my studies for the day. And I it's just something that I try to incorporate every day to just keep moving forward. You know what I mean? Moving forward on the path of learning, and remembering to have an empty cup. Yeah, continue to have an empty cup so that I'm able to listen with compassion for others, and not do my best to not make things about me when I'm in conversation, but to actually just listen. But yeah, overly stimulated. It happens. That makes us human. I mean, so much access to technology, and yeah, you're going to get overly stimulated at times. But the way I like to manage it is kind of to just, when I recognize that I'm overly stimulated, just be still. What are the joys of living alone, and what are the cons? Okay, so the joys of living alone is that you can get silence when you want it. And if you need to take a minute to kind of recalibrate your mind and just think, you can get those moments a lot. A lot of those moments. When stuff is missing, you know where it was. You don't guess anybody else has been tampering with it. Being able to not have to wake up to the sounds of somebody else's needs, and overall peace. Honestly, peace. You don't have to be around personalities that you don't necessarily stand in a long period of time. I mean, I think we've all lived together with, obviously growing up in a house with family, and possibly were either in a relationship before, married before, lived together. And yeah, it takes a certain mentality to live with someone for a long period of time. They have to adjust to the way you like to do stuff. You adjust to the way they like to do stuff. You might want to clean the dishes in the morning. They want to clean the dishes before they go to bed. And, so like to have it to where everything moves on with the way you want it to do is, I say, like the joys of that. Having, you can sing or rap at the top of your lungs. You want to play a podcast or something loud. It's just a lot of time to really build and focus on oneself, is the joys of like living alone, being able to build, being able to build yourself up and just kind of separate yourself from the world. You're able to you can drift away. And in a lot of ways you can drift away. There's room for, like I said, there's room for studying, room for doing what you want to do, not having to be concerned about this person thinking that the music's too loud, they can't concentrate, or you being inconsiderate, or whatever it is. The body wash is on its last. Somebody left an empty jug of of whatever juice drink in the fridge and didn't throw it out. Like there's those things that are taken into consideration when you are like living alone, and that's more so of a pro. Okay, so cons of living alone. When you are like in a sense of pain, or it's a panic attack, it's just you. there's not that person to essentially like nurse you, and that's something that you just accept as a man, person, whatever, you know, if you decide to kind of live alone. And it's something that has taken into consideration for years and years of living alone. It's just when you learn to live alone, man, it's addictive. It's certainly addictive to have that peace, and especially certain personalities, challenging personalities that are really, you know, attention seeking. They just constantly need to be seen and heard with their voice and shit. It can become draining, right? It can be draining. So when you just have that alone time to yourself, that peace, man, it's so fortunate. But getting back to the cons of it all is that, yeah, it's essentially just you. So what that means is that you can get lost in your own thoughts, whether that's down a positive alley or a negative alley. There's not really one to kind of talk you out of it, you know. So you can get caught up in your own thoughts, your own illusions of what you perceive life to be. And I do that quite often. I know for sure I do that quite often. There's times where you perceive life a certain way, especially when you're under like an addiction. In my sense, it was like it was the porn addiction. And with the porn addiction, it was happening to when I didn't feel like I was lovable and I didn't feel like I was good enough, right? So when those thoughts would come in, they would only heighten. Like the more you do it, the more you do your addiction, the more you feel what's drawing you to the addiction. So when something little happens, you get triggered and you believe exactly what you're telling yourself, and it very well may not necessarily be the case. It's just that perspective, right? And when you're holding on to life as right and wrong, as you know, I'd like to talk about all the time, and you're triggered, you might believe what is merely just an illusion, versus just taking time to detach from the situation, take a step back and assess it with a better lens. And kind of what's really great about like therapy is when you go in there and you tell them what is on your mind and how you see things, they can be that person that's there to be like, oh, okay, so this is what you're doing is absolute thinking. You know what I mean? Like recent video visits to the therapist kind of pointed that out to me, that, you know, this whole concept of absolute thinking, and no negative thoughts and all that, like embracing both positive and negative, and realizing what you can learn from both of it. And I can find myself, you know, I know for sure in the past, I won't say recently, but like in the past, before I really got into therapy, I was assuming why family wasn't doing this, why friends weren't doing this, why this was happening in traffic, why this was happening at the job. I created all these scenarios without their permission. And you know what I mean? Like, it's not for me to assume why something happened. It's for me to understand that something happened, but it's not for me to assume why it happened. And we like to justify. We like to justify why something happens when it happens, when we don't have an answer from that person. I'm guilty of doing such, and so I just hold myself accountable. But when you don't have that person like that lives with you, you know what I'm saying, to kind of, and depending on their mental health, you don't really have nothing to bounce off of. So, I mean, I'll say that's a con of like living alone. It's not having another person to be like, am I crazy? Am I really crazy? Am I a little crazy? Like, you don't have that there when you find yourself to be almost like second guessing yourself. Like you're tapping more into your insecurities than you can at the moment. Another con of like not, of living alone. Movies hit differently when you watch them with others. That I can say. As much as I love living alone, when you are able to say, hey, we went to go see whatever it was, you know what I'm saying? We saw Bad Boys together. We saw Ninja Turtles together. We saw, Mufasa together. We saw the whatever together, just naming various movies that I like a lot, you know what I mean? When you have those moments, you can there's an emotion that comes along with it. And that's what it's and that's what life is really all about, like having those moments. And it's just navigating who you can spend that time with that doesn't drain you. At some point in time. The key is that everybody's human. And there's no getting around it. And so, there was a phase where I can be honest with myself, it's very much a selfish phase, a much needed selfish phase after trying to be there for everyone and not give anything for myself. At least that's how I felt. That's how I perceived it to be. But to get in a stage where I was just really just about like, all right, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and fuck what anyone else thinks, type thing. And then as time progresses, you get to know people that actually become complements to your life, and you enjoy those moments, those minor moments with them, to be able to have those that that joy of like laughter. Because I look at when we were in the dorms, all of us together. It wasn't about material things. It wasn't about maybe video games. That's about as much as material as it got. Material things like video games and movies that kind of brought us together, where we share laughs, create our own humor. And I know sometimes you can get caught up. You can get caught up in life, and it can consume you with a lot of the tools to destroy yourself. But the beauty of it is having, I'll say, like having a support system, having knowledge, having the wisdom to bring to sit in yourself. So, so with living, with living alone, you can get caught up in your own thoughts, and not necessarily the ones that benefit you. The ineffective thoughts. And the ineffective thoughts can lead you down a path, and before you know it, you are self-sabotaging. You are beating yourself up mentally in the mind. So thank God for nature, right? Thank God for nature, to be able to just sit in nature, walk in nature, and become restored. So I love the beach. And that's the joy of living alone. That's something I do prefer to do by myself, is be at the beach, to just read and just release any negative energy to Oceana while you're out there. Because you get consumed by life, and you're just everybody projecting their energy, their needs and stuff onto you. And if you're not careful, it can get to you. So that's so I look at that con of living alone, is not having the folks to kind of balance off your own thoughts. A con of living alone, when you cook a lot, like I tend to do, it requires you to have the same meal, sometimes weeks at a time, which is why, when I get closer, especially at work, to bring food that I make, right? Bring food that I make to kind of get it out the house, and learning how to share too. That's something I had to learn how to do, and really much. I wasn't an effective sharer at the beginning of my life. I'll say that I can be honest about myself with that. But yeah, being able to, when times come when you do cook a lot, especially around holidays and all that stuff, you can there's nobody there to kind of spread that meal. So that's a con with that. Especially when you learn that it's really just about tasting that meal for what it is, and then just letting it go, and not having so much of a scarcity mindset when it comes to the things, so attached to them, where you're afraid to let them go, afraid for food to be wasted, but you also waste food. So it's just remembering how human everybody else is. And I think that's that's kind of like the joys of recognizing of holding that mirror to yourself and seeing see, you're just like them, you know? And there's no sense of pointing a finger, because you're just like them in some other way. Whatever bothers you about them is something that you don't necessarily care too much in yourself. If I've learned anything from my studies of like mental health, is that, it's like when you are pissed off about something in someone else, it's just everything. We're just a mirror. We're just mirroring each other. So we can find something we don't like in our parents and fuck around and learn that we have the same thing. And like I said, you just laugh at yourself about it, because you just see how human they are. There's so many ways. And I think that if we look more to that, we can, I don't know, maybe we can figure out this life shit together, right? But pros, cons of living alone. Number one thing is the peace of living alone. And I would say the cons of, like, the biggest con is just that, yeah, it's just you. So there will be times where you will require some help, and you gotta navigate it. You gotta figure it out. And been fortunate. I can say that I definitely have been fortunate. And anytime there has been a need for help, I've been in a position to where there was someone around. So very grateful to those people, as well as the knowledge to do so, and the opportunity to have those moments with them. But yeah, that's the pros and cons of living alone. What was a food in high school that stands out when you reflect? A food, to me, that stands out from high school would be the sugar cookies, probably from senior year, because I think that's when they got there. There used to be a line in Ansman as you're walking into the cafeteria. To the left was like the snack side, and to the far right was where all the the lunch and stuff was, and always the rectangle pizza was always hitting. And some of us would put the hot sauce on it. And then the days when we used to have the chicken sandwiches, and that's when I first saw people mix ketchup and mayo together, and they would put it on their sandwiches. And then you get bit by the bug, and you want to do what seems to be cool, and you did it, and it was okay, but I was definitely doing it to fit in. But the sugar cookies hit. The sugar cookies hit like nobody's business. They used to come in like this little clear plastic bag, and I think they were it was two for $1 or just $1, whatever it was. But it wasn't made by like Odin Spuckenheimer or Otis's cookies, whatever other name, Famous Amos, whatever cookie name you can come up with. I think it was just made by our lunch ladies or lunch men, whatever it was. Much appreciated to them for the efforts and the jobs and their role and what it took to help out kids that were there for school. But yeah, for sure, the sugar cookie man, as Dylon said, making the bad Chappelle show. But yeah, the sugar cookies used to hit something serious when we was at Nansman. In the current state of our society, what would you do to overcome hate? Well, just remember that you're human, honestly, and that's really that's all I can really say. I mean, everything else is that I'm going to say, it just comes from remembering to be human. And by human, meaning that as humans, we have our own thoughts. We have our own ambitions, we have our own goals, we have things that we want to do, we have our own preferences, and give people the grace to have that, even if you don't agree with them. Of course, we know what's happened in recent news, and I didn't know anything about the young man until it happened. And I'm not here to speak on him or his politics or the stuff that he spoke on. That's not what this is about. What I'm saying is to remember that we're human. That's it, man. Like, have your own thoughts, live your own life. There's enough life to go around. And as far as where the hate goes, I mean, let's learn to not dismiss in conversation. Let's not dismiss in life. Let's not believe that we don't have all the answers. And let us not believe that we're right and other people are wrong. Just see things from perspective, unless it's trivial. Obviously, if I tell you that McDonald's is down on Roosevelt, and it's down on Jefferson, yeah, I'm wrong. If I say that I wore these glasses in a picture that we got together, and you clearly know that I didn't wear them in the picture, and you have the picture, I'm wrong. And it's okay. It's okay to be wrong. What's not okay is when you are so right. You believe that you're so right that you have to shame a person for it. Like, it's not enough for you to just be right. You have to shame a person for not knowing what you know, or believing what you believe, or whatever the case may be. Because I think that like, to the point where you get so pissed off because a person doesn't believe what you believe that you have to take their life, to me is very much an extreme. And if anybody's been on social media in the last week, I'm sure you've seen some celebrities meme, quote, whatever, pretty much uttering the same thing. But I know that we can allow our emotions to get the best of us when we feel like we're so right, and someone has to believe that they have to believe what we believe. They have to agree with us. And it's okay for you to not agree with someone. We can speak on a subject and not agree on the subject, and life will be okay. I'm not less of a person because I don't agree with you. You're not less of a person because you don't agree with me. And why is it so important to be right? That is the question that we all have to ask. Why is it so fucking important to be right? Could you not just have your perspective, and some people agree with your perspective and some people don't? Like, when a person doesn't agree with you, you do not have to slander them because they don't agree. You don't have to call them stupid because they don't agree with you. They're just not where you are, and you're not where they are. So have grace. Stoics speak on that all the time. There's going to be people that do things that you're going to be like, why the fuck did they do that? And the reason why you're saying that is because you know something that they don't know, right? So because you know something that they don't know, they're not able to respond the way you would in that particular instance. But have grace. Have grace for that human. All goes back to that. Everything we have, our favorite teams, our favorite movies, our favorite, whatever, cliques, family members, groups that we belong to, things we believe in, all come down to the fact that we're merely just human, right? We're merely just human. And anytime we try to be more than human, we fuck up. There is not a time, anyone on this earth, in my opinion, this is just my perspective, there's not a time, any time on this earth where we've acted any time more than human where we did not fuck up. And I'm including myself in that. And it's just remembering to just be human. So, do we all have egos? Yeah, we do. We all have an ego. We do. And sometimes we really do believe we are our ego. That's how attached we can allow ourselves to be, that we believe we're something that does not even exist. And I think guys like Alan Watts, that kind of speak on the ego and realizing how attached it becomes to us. And I think the perfect example that I can describe the ego is the way, I think it was either Alan Watts that said it, or it was like one of the, like, it's a Buddhist monk that kind of talked about it. But when you're in a chair, the chair serves its purpose. It holds you up, right? But you are not the chair. The chair is representation of the ego, where we think we are our ego. No, it's just something that helped us get through something, or helped us survive something, or helped us, in the present situation when we felt down, it stood up for us. It was like that, that big brother that came to the school to beat up whoever had something to say about the little version of us. Who over here fucking with Lil Rome? That ego comes in and is like, all right, what's up? We can get down. What's happening? But you are not that ego. And when I say these things, it's mirror talk. It really is. It's just mirror talk for me. If ever I look back at this stuff, because I can get beside myself, and that happens. It's part of being human. You can get beside yourself. But it's great to have moments that humble you and bring you back to being in the center, recognizing that you're just human. And I say all that to say is that the individuals who project pain onto others, or hate, however you wish to do it, they're battling something bigger than you even know. Like, every person you meet is dealing with something that you don't even know. So kindness with healthy boundaries is very helpful. And it's just learning that to just be. Just learning to just be. Just be in the moment. Just be human. Have grace. Forgive, honestly. Learning how to truly forgive, man. When you go through when you go through pain, you do your best to avoid it. And sometimes you just associate people with pain and you just avoid them. But we can still have grace and be able to forgive, not for them, but for us. And realize they didn't know any better. And some people find that hard to believe. Like, no, they're older. That's my mom. She knew, or she's human. Like, they don't necessarily fit the role that we have in our movie of them. Parents, family members, friends, co-workers, people in general. We might think more of them in our mind than they do in theirs. And sometimes our illusions get shattered when they show us they were just being who they are at the time. Everybody's gonna grow. Everybody doesn't always grow at the same time. But how to overcome hate is just remembering to be human and have, like I said, have grace for those and show kindness to your tribe. You start with your tribe, and it can give a reminder to them that there is kindness, and they don't have to be so in fear, living in fear, and they can learn how to live in love and give, have compassion for others. I don't know, that's how I see it with stuff. Am I flawed? I assure you I am. I'm heavily flawed, man. No joke. All the peace talks, all the everything of trying to promote positivity, but guarantee you I am very flawed. I don't know. I guess I just own my shit, man, and figuring it out as I go along. But how in our current state of society, how do we overcome? We just don't. We learn how to. We have to learn how to love people. As cheesy, unmanly that may sound to people who don't really do emotions, but learn how to love the people around you. That's really it. You know, do your best to not make things about you. Even when it's about you, don't make it about you. It's about the person, whatever they're dealing with, whatever they're projecting. So, with that being said, I've enjoyed doing this episode, but that's it. So, I'm Romy Mac, and I'm out. Good night, kids.